Hello, nerds for humanity. We have a POTUS 2024 update, and I've got James Sceville with me, who I had on the show. It feels ages ago, back when Joe Biden was the, likely nominee of the Democratic Party, and the world has been turned at least 90 degrees. And now we're coming out of the race is in a different place. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're also going to, at the end, talk about how James's own campaign is going and what he's hearing from his prospective constituents around local issues. So welcome back to the show, James.
Hi, thank you for having me back. It's good to be here.
Now, remind everybody where you're calling from, James.
So I am calling from Thief River Falls, Minnesota. It is very rural northwest Minnesota, at the very tippy top of the state up here. So now with the current presidential race, I am in the vice presidential candidate's home state of Minnesota.
Minnesota is it punches above its weight class. Like you had Mondale, Klobuchar. Isn't it Klobuchar from Minnesota?
Amy Klobuchar, she's one of our senators. She's amazing.
Now you have Walls. And then business-wise, you guys have like Target, General Mills, United Healthcare.
3M. 3M's a huge one up here, yeah.
Go Minnesota.
It's kind of one of those things. We're in the middle of nowhere here, Minnesota, middle of the country, but it's kind of crazy what comes out of this state. Yeah. And now we're national attention. Everyone's talking about hot dish. I see it all over. It's like, okay, that's different.
Yeah, indeed. And well, this isn't as big of a deal for the whole country, but for my audience, Dean Phillips came from Minnesota as well. So you guys,
Dean Phillips,
you have a history of putting people out there to shake things up. I love it.
Well, that's what they say, middle of the road, middle of the country. We're hitting both sides right now.
I love it. Well, tell me a little bit about Governor Walz. He has been kind of presented to the world, as a coach and congressman and National Guardsman and, great communicator. I'm curious from the people that actually live in Minnesota before he became kind of a national figure, like what was he like as a governor? What did you think of him?
So now I say this as I'm a rural Minnesotan, and a lot of signs around here still have the "Walls suck," which was the big slogan of their last campaign against him in the gubernatorial race 2 years ago. Not very creative, Walls failed, Walls sucks. It's not the best. But as a Minnesotan, we now have free lunch and breakfast for our kids. We have access to great health care through Minnesota Care. The Mayo Clinic has expanded down in Rochester, and the Mayo Clinic is some of the best healthcare in the world.
Yeah.
It's been going really good. I have no issues with Walz. To me, Walz is that dad that everyone kind of has wanted for so long. He's goofy, he's fun to be around. He's a very middle of the road governor. Everyone's been calling him, commie and progressive, most elite progressive out there, but not really. We've had the benefit of having a trifecta here in Minnesota, which has pushed a lot of progressive policies. But Minnesota's just been a very nice place to live under Governor Walz. Businesses are thriving here. A lot of people are migrating here still. It's been nice. Even up here in rural Minnesota, businesses have been able to expand. DigiKey is a local business here. They just now finally opened their largest expansion. They're now the 4th largest distributor of electronic component parts in the world. And we're in a town of 10,000 people, and they're the 4th largest in the world. I don't know if that could have happened in another state.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's a kind of a miracle what's going on in Minnesota. It's super impressive, and I'm looking at his reelection numbers. It looks like he won with 52% of the vote. Does that did it feel like he won with 52%? I mean,
Yeah,
it sounds
that
like there was
sounds
a lot of,
about right. If you look at our demographics between Metro, the Twin Cities metro area, Duluth, and Rochester, that's about 52% of the population. That's where the majority of the votes come from. And then outstate Minnesota, like my area, is very much a 75-25 split. So
mm-hmm.
you have about every 1 in 4 person will admit to voting for a Democrat up here. Yeah, that sounds about right. And then now that some of the third party, not just candidates, but parties, the third parties themselves, no longer really have platforms to run in, I'm going to guess that next gubernatorial race, it's probably going to be a little bit higher than that. If it's Walz or if it's Peggy Flanagan or vice governor at the moment, lieutenant governor, not vice governor.
Right. So, as an example, the legalized marijuana folks probably have more in common with Walz than Jensen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Between them and the grassroots legalized cannabis, it's really two parties that ran on the same thing. It's 2% of the vote overall.
Yeah.
But that I'm not going to say that's cost DFL seats, but if you look down some of the elections on the House seats, it's been very close within that 2-3% of those races that have gone to third party, which I commend them on. I love anyone that wants to run under any ban want to go for it. But it's definitely going to kind of move those percentages around a little bit now.
I love it. So in some ways, he might have had like a 10-point win if you say, well, the legalized cannabis and legalized marijuana folks.
Sorry, I just recently became diabetic, hooked up to my phone all the time. They gave me one of these little Dexcom things.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know how to turn the sound off. I've tried.
Yeah.
I've been sitting here. I think I'm just going to go throw my phone down the hallway here.
Oh, well, are you okay?
There.
Do you
Oh,
need...
no, it's just it beeps at me because I don't know how to do anything on it. I just threw my phone down the hallway. It shouldn't interrupt us again.
No worries. Yeah, those glucose, it's like a continuous glucose monitor thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
those
really
are
cool.
amazing.
It's really cool, but kind of since election season really took off, I've had to get on different meds.
Yeah, well, I have elevated A1Cs. I'm not quite diabetic, like pre-diabetic, and I used a glucose monitor to kind of understand my diet more, and I was shocked. I knew like ice cream has a lot of sugar in it, but I was shocked how it spiked my numbers like
It's
instantly.
crazy.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's we have rice with probably, I don't know, 4 days a week with our dinners and everything, and it shot everything up there. It's like, oh man, like that's a staple of our diet in this household.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can. Does Noodles do the same to you?
I haven't been checking that out too much.
Well, hopefully you'll find something. Anyway,
yeah.
last time you were on this show, we were probably lamenting about like, man, what's going to happen? You got Trump, who's been kind of referred to as divinely protected by an assassination attempt,
Well,
and he had the...
So no, last time I was on the show was the morning of the assassination attempt. We got done, then it happened.
Oh, so it was the same day, but right before. Okay.
Right before.
Okay, then we were probably lamenting about, wow, Biden doesn't look that strong.
No, yeah, last time we were talking about, it's like, okay, are we going to stick with Biden or would we be okay with someone else taking over? And we're all just kind of sad about things.
Yeah. Wow, how much, like, what a transformation. A lot of my MAGA friends asked me, hey, what is going on? Like, how is it that Harris is suddenly like, she went from worst to first, and like, this is clearly the mainstream media is manipulating you. And I said, no, you don't understand how concerned we all were with Joe Biden as the nominee. because we were worried he was going to get his butt kicked. And we all saw that debate.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, Kamala's great, but anyone,
I mean, it's
like would have
it's
been
kind of crazy. That debate, it hurt me. It hurt me right in my heart there.
Yeah.
And then the fact that he willingly stepped down and gave up power is commendable beyond all belief. That is not something people do very often. And I think it's really inspired so many people and brought out so much. I don't know what the opposite of bringing out the doom and gloom, but what are they using? They're bringing out the joy. We're bringing the joy back.
Yeah, he definitely, even though I had wished he wouldn't have run in the first place for re-election, the fact that he voluntarily stepped down from, the 2024 ticket is quite unusual, because most political leaders, even when they're clearly, losing it, like, they won't give up power.
No, it's not something you give up easy. I mean, it's power. It's literally what you go for.
So, normally you would have expected, okay, a lifelong politician, they finally get into the White House, they have won their nomination in the primaries. They would not give that up. And even if they were down 10 points, they would say, well, I'll make it up. I always overcome, the odds, blah, blah, blah. So kudos to Joe for, and I have to say, I think Nancy Pelosi, like, that might have been one of the biggest things she did for the country, is to kind of influence and convince Joe.
Absolutely. I'm going to assume that they had a very heartfelt talk. And you have two people that have been in power for as long as they have, been around as long as they have. He's going to listen to someone like that. He really is.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sounds to me, the reporting is that those are tough conversations, and the two of them haven't talked a lot since then. So I'm sure she probably tried with, honey, and then had to say, look, not only are you going to lose, but we're going to have to really make it clear that we're not in support of you, or something. Like, I have to believe that it was a tough conversation.
I can only imagine. And she probably came with all of her receipts there to be like, hey, if you keep running, you're going to drag down everybody with you.
Yeah. The legacy will be that you handed Trump all three branches of government.
Yeah.
And that won't be.
And now I believe he's going to go out as a hero for the Democratic Party. He's going to be remembered for a long time.
Yeah, watching that convention reminded me of, I don't know if you guys had a lot, but when I grew up in New Jersey, and in the winter, from time to time, if there was a big enough snowstorm, they would call off school. And everybody would be elated. Like, we'd all be waiting for that call in the morning, be like, are they going to cancel school today? And I kind of feel like everybody in that convention hall felt like they escaped Biden prison, because we were all resigned to just like putting on a strong face and probably losing to Trump with a weak Biden candidacy. And, just the whole energy of the place was like a 180-degree change. I mean, did you notice it with any of your kind of friends and family? Like, how did they feel?
Absolutely. So when we heard that Biden was stepping down, me and my friend were working at the county fair booth, so at the DFL booth here at the fair. And it's like, well, what do we do now? We're not sure. And then we have the GOP booth right across the hallway there, and they're looking at us. So like, what do you guys do? It's like, we don't know. So that kind of ended that. It's like, well, let's just see what happens from here. And then the next week I had another county fair, because I have 4 counties in this district. So that's all I've been doing. And we had Harris up then, because she's announced, she said, hey, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And the amount of older women that would come up and just kind of give us a little thumbs up away from their husbands. The amount of young people that come up and say, "Hey, that's really cool. You guys already got something up at her." We had people asking for the printout because we don't have any signs. We had somebody print out a headshot of her and we stuck it on our booth. It has been a huge 180 from where we were 2 months ago. Younger people have been asking how to get involved in some of the DFL stuff out here, which has been amazing because it's been 8 of us, and I've been the youngest one by about 35 years. So wanting people to actually come out and get involved now that Harris is going. And this being Minnesota, I don't think a lot of it's Harris. I think a lot of it out here is Walls because we know him so well. It's been great. Now I look across the river from us in North Dakota, and it's gotten worse over there. We have a very, we have a bunch of towns that are right on the state line for the river. So we get people from North Dakota coming to events on this side because they're closer. And they're very upset. They're very upset because they had a sure thing going on, and now they're not so sure.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a very interesting year for them, I think, because I fully expected Trump to walk away with this after the little fist pump and everything. I thought that was the end of it.
Oh, yeah.
I could have sworn that's going to be in the history books for all time to come as the changing of America. That was crazy. That was a crazy day.
That was a crazy day. And that picture, I was like, oh my God. Like, you couldn't have done an AI generated version that would have been more iconic looking. And now, you don't, it's almost like, it feels like ages ago. And the whole, like, everybody in the Republic convention was like covering their ear with the bandage. Like, I think that's no longer like a thing. Yeah.
No, we're kind of completely ignoring that. Just a month ago, we had a president that was shot at. It's kind of just not a thing anymore. It doesn't seem to get brought up at all.
And you could argue,
kind of weird.
Yeah, you could argue, like, as much as I want him to lose, like, we do need to acknowledge, like, this was a huge attack on democracy.
Because I think the last presidential assassination attempt was probably Reagan.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And that was coming up on 40 years ago.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is, my son was asking me this. He was like, hey, wasn't it dangerous for him to pose for the pictures after the first shot? Like, why didn't they just get him out of there? And I kind of agree. Like, if he had, like, let's say there was another shooter that was doing like follow-on attempts, like, why would you want to be standing tall, raising your fist up, over the heads of all your protection? Like, it's a heroic pose, but it's perhaps like not, I don't know if it's the best judgment as a commander-in-chief.
No. Yeah. So I will say this with just a little tinfoil hat going on right here, is Trump was with the WWE for many, many years, friends with Vince McMahon. That man knows how to put on a show. He knows when to get up there and do something. He has crazy instincts of when and where a camera is at and how to pose for it. I mean, I'll give him kudos for that. That man knows where cameras are and has showmanship to take advantage of it. So that was not the smartest thing by any means.
Yeah.
But that might have been the smartest thing for him and his campaign at the time.
Yeah.
It might have been very dangerous, but
yeah,
that could have been the most iconic picture of, probably even 50 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's a picture that I think all of us will remember for a long time, and it was the thing that I think really maybe in a weird way that was part of Biden's calculus to be like, oh shit, this guy's like this heroic thing now, and my polls are crap. The House is turning against me. My donors are turning against me. In a way, maybe Trump peaked too early with the killer debate performance and then the assassination, kind of overcoming the assassination attempt. If that had happened in, September, October, we'd be done.
Oh, yeah, it would have been over. And I think now with this pivot, he was not expecting Biden to drop out, because why would you give up power? And he has had no response to Kamala and Walz. There's been no attacks or anything that have sat and worked. I mean, he tried to do the laughing thing. He's going after, Comrade Kamala now, and
Yeah.
nothing's sticking. His team was not ready for the actual chance of Biden dropping out. And now Kamala and Walz are taking advantage over all of it by just having Walz be your normal Midwestern dad, and Kamala's is coming out. Yeah, like that picture right there, I would have assumed would be in every history book for years upon years to come and plastered everywhere.
Yeah.
There is a guy in my hometown here who has that on probably a 8x10 banner he has floating from his trees right now.
Well, 8 feet?
8 feet, yeah, it's big. He's got it hanging in between two trees. But he also has the guy who lost the primary still in his yard, a big 5-foot sign for him. So,
Yeah, the whole I noticed that the sort of like the Trump flags and on the back of the trucks and everything, it does, on the one hand, you're like, okay, yeah, they're enthusiastic. It's like supporting your team. On the other hand, it really does create this like us versus you. Like there's, I know that,
tribalism.
And I know the Trump campaign has talked that this year, like their theme is unity, but I'm not feeling that. That lasted for about 10 minutes.
If even that. Say though, I actually see a lot less flags. There's a guy just down the road from me. He took his down, and I thought it'd just be to replace them, but nothing's gone back up.
Interesting.
So we're seeing less and less of them in town here. And like I said, we're in a very red area. So I don't know if people are just getting sick of it and they just want the drama to end, because that's been a big thing I've heard this entire time, or if they're just trying to hide their support right now because they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's been different. There's two Trump signs I've seen in town. The one with the giant flag of him doing that, and then just your regular yard sign at another house. I mean, I have more signs up in town than Trump does, and you'd think a presidential campaign would have a lot more than just some local guy.
Yeah, totally. Maybe there is a little bit of Trump enthusiasm gap or Trump fatigue. I am lucky to have a fair number of friends and family who are Trump supporters, and they keep, I've heard two narratives from them. One is, there actually isn't any enthusiasm for a Kamala. This is a sugar high, and the crowds aren't even real. They're actually AI generated images.
Oh, I love seeing those ones.
Yeah. And look, there's no shadow in the tip of the airplane. And if you see this fuzzy kind of border here, like, what's that all about? So that's one thing that, like, there's no real Kamala momentum. It's all mainstream media and you're all sheep, right? And then the second one is that, she's a communist who's gonna let all the criminals out, and doesn't believe in the rule of law, doesn't believe in enforcing laws, yada yada. The first one I find,
a prosecutor.
I remind them of that, and they're like, but it was in San Francisco. I was like, well, she still prosecuted people and convicted people even in San Francisco, which is actually hard. Pretty hard place to convict people. So, in fact, a lot of her folks, Democratic supporters to her left are critical of what, of her work as a prosecutor. But I find both of those troubling, because I would not be surprised if on November 6th, they are convinced that she didn't win fairly,
Mhm.
because they'll say she never had anybody supporting, no one really went to her events. And number two, like, you're not going to have a country anymore if she gets elected, and we need to save our country, and you have to fight for your country and all this crap.
I mean, they've been saying that second one about every single Democratic candidate since ever. I mean, since, the Red Scare and everything. Everyone they don't like's a commie. Everyone they don't like's going to ruin America. It's lost all meaning. It really has. So that I'm not too worried about anymore. The first one, I guess I kind of see where they're coming from on it. Same with them saying, no one voted for her in the primary or anything. No one did this, no one did that. On that, it's like, well, you voted for Biden. Biden was running with Harris. And then I also like to swing it around on them. You guys are constantly saying we're not a democracy, we're a representative republic. So you know, voting for them anyways, you were voting for representatives to go to the convention to elect
Right.
someone. So which are you guys going to do now?
Yeah. Yeah, I have had a lot of my MAGA friends say, like, why aren't you angry that Biden, there was a coup and Biden was, they stole it from him. And I'm like, okay, number one, I don't understand why you somehow care so much about Biden now.
Yeah. Well, now
Like,
they're
thank
all
you.
BFFs.
Yeah, thank you for your concern. I think you were the guys telling me that he couldn't even, like, walk to the corner of the street, on his own. So you should be happy that he's no longer the nominee. And then the second thing is, like, these political parties, like, they're not in the Constitution. They pick their own nominee on the rules that they set. It's not like, there's some amendment that says every political party has to have this process to pick their nominee. And then one of them even said, like, look, Kamala didn't even participate in any debates in the primary. And I'm like, well, your guy, I don't think I saw him on the stage either. It's just weird how they're,
It's
like,
true. It's
grasping at
true.
straws.
It's they're reaching for so much stuff. It just doesn't make any sense. They're looking for anything to grasp onto.
They kind of had it too. They were a little spoiled with Joe Biden in that he was such an easy opponent for them. And now they're, because they were like, oh, wow, we're going to play like the worst team in the NFL. And now we're like, oh, yeah, we've got a whole new roster, and they don't know what to do. And it is, I'm glad, because I definitely don't want to see Trump in the White House again, but I'm concerned about whether the MAGA, like the ultra MAGA, will support a peaceful transfer of power if, Kamala gets more than 270 electoral votes and it's certified by all the states. Like, are we going to have another, you need to take your country back, please march on the Capitol thing?
I mean, probably. I don't think there's ever going to be another peaceful transfer in the next 10 years without at least somebody out there trying to start something. Because even we have some candidates and some congressmen and representatives now who are all aboard the conspiracy train about how we're stealing our country. It's like, you guys are literally part of this. You see the process. You know that's not true.
Yeah. I agree. All right, we have some live chat questions for you, James. So we should talk a little bit about your race. But before we go into your campaign, let's talk about predictions for the POTUS campaign. This has been a crazy year. Do you think there's going to be a surprise between now and November that will fundamentally change the dynamics of the race? Or do you think this is going to be a likely, whatever, Harris 51, Trump 49 kind of deal?
Oh, big things. The more I look at the polls, the more I want to see Texas turn. And I think if there's going to be a year to do it, this might be the year, between the mix of Kamala and Walz and just Ted Cruz being up for election again. Because it's just the unlikeness for Ted Cruz. I think that's going to be a very close one in Texas this year. I don't know if it's going to get flipped, but I think it's going to be within just a couple of percentage points. We'll see on
Wow.
that. I really do.
That is, you think there's a chance that Texas could go blue?
Looking at everything, yeah. On that,
Wow.
the biggest thing is going to be young voters. There's been some polls coming out and some data coming out that if people voted, the younger people voted the same age that people 65 and up vote,
Yeah.
Texas flips blue. That is a hard sell.
Wow.
But I look at a lot of the people that like Walz that are middle of the road Republicans that don't like the way the GOP has gone. You know, Walz is gun supporting, he's a hunter, he's an outdoorsman. I think a lot of people are going to get behind that and be like, okay, I can vote for this.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be close. I don't know if it'll turn all the
Wow.
way, but I think it's going to be closer than it has been.
Now, to your credit, it looks like, according to the latest polls, Harris is behind Trump by 5. However, if you look at the previous polls against Biden, Trump used to be up by 9 to 10 points. So his lead has been cut in half with the change of opponent. So I guess you're thinking that will continue to compress.
I think so.
Wow. Now,
I
Ted
really
Cruz,
do.
do you think Ted Cruz could? He's been around for a while. Wow,
He's
he's
been
only
around
up
for
by
a
2.
while. But
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it, no one likes Ted Cruz. I don't even know if Ted Cruz likes himself there, but he's got the right letter after his name in Texas, I think is more or less how he's stayed along.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
abandoning his people when Texas has been frozen. Just he's not a very likable guy. Allred's okay. I haven't seen a lot into his campaigning.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be the year where this is going to be the best chance Texas has had of flipping blue.
Interesting. You know, if there's anyone other than Trump who's pissed about Biden stepping down, it might be Ted Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
Because presumably, if it were a Biden-Trump race in November, I'm thinking Cruz would have done better than he will do with a Harris-Trump kind of matchup in November.
Absolutely.
Because there are a lot of people that probably would have stayed home who are kind of like not into Trump but couldn't find themselves voting for Biden, who might be like, Harris Walz, especially the Walz element. Like, I mean, that was a great choice by her in hindsight to kind of get someone who can speak to rural America in a way that I don't think Shapiro or Whitmer could have. Maybe Bashar, but Bashar is not really that great of a speaker from what I can tell.
Well, and if you would have asked me to put money on someone, I would have lost on Walz. I was going all around being like, it's going to be Mark Kelly from Arizona. It is going to be Mark
Yeah,
Kelly
the
because he's
astronaut
an
guy.
American hero, an astronaut.
Yeah.
And then now it comes Walz. It's like, okay, well, let's see how this goes. And he's just been doing amazing. I like to see now that camouflage and buffalo plaid is now a Democrat thing that is really coming out.
Oh, I don't know what buffalo plaid is. What is that?
Oh, it's
Is
the
that
red and black stripe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a classic. Yeah, that's a classic.
That's it. He's bringing it back to the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, I can almost smell the barbecue that he's like cooking up in that.
No. Minnesota barbecue is Sloppy Joe's. Just for all your viewers to know that if anyone from Minnesota asks if you want a barbecue, it is Sloppy Joe's.
Oh, so you guys don't do like ribs or brisket or anything?
Not in a way that you guys would like. I love Minnesota. I've been here a very long time, but the food is not the best. I love me some hot dish, but
what is the influence of what's the sort of culinary heritage?
Swedish, Norwegian. Put a pound of butter in it and hope for the best.
Got it. So like meatballs and stuff would be
on the
Swedish
menu. Meatballs. egg noodles, that's a pretty big staple up here.
Yeah.
Casseroles are called hot dishes, but hot dishes are not casseroles. That people will fight you on that one. So you
Okay.
get tater tot hot dish is like the Midwestern staple from Minnesota. And it's just a bunch of frozen vegetables, some ground beef, and 2 cans of cream or whatever soup. Top it with cheese and tater tots. It's
Oh,
good. It's
yeah, that's
different, but it's
comforting.
good.
It's comforting. I don't know if your doctor would be like, "Oh, yes,
No.
please do that every day."
Yeah, and salads in Minnesota. You can have 13 different salads. Not one of them will have a piece of lettuce in it.
Interesting. All right. I learn
Yeah.
something new every day. Well, James, let's talk a little bit about your campaign. In fact, Chris was wondering, hey, like, are you seeing impact on your chances with the new ticket at the POTUS level?
So I think we're going to do a lot better than I previously thought. I was hoping, hit 30% would be great for this district. It'd be better than anyone's done in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the amount of people I have asking for where they can get signs at for the Harris Walls, and I'm like, well, I can get you some, and then I can go and talk to them about all my stuff as well. I think we're going to hit that 35% mark, which would be better
Mm.
than anyone's done up here since 2008 for the DFL. It's really had a lot more people engaging. We've been doing nothing but parades and fairs here for the past 2 months, and we've had 2 negative comments this entire time, which for a deep red area, I would expect a lot more people to give us some boos or sneers, but it's been really nice and engaging. Our parades are all over the place, and I like to go into the back rows where all the old people are sitting at and give them candy personally because they don't get everything, all the kids do. But so many of them be like, "Hey, I vote DFL up and down ticket. You have my vote." And I'm just like, thank you for being willing to say that out loud. It's been great. It's surprising. I'm honestly shocked at how well things have been going this year for how bad I thought they were going to be at the start.
Yeah. Now, James, tell me about the motivation to run in a 75-25 district. Like, let's say you have a outsized result, which would be to go from 25 to 30 or 35. Um, that's a lot of work, and you still don't win the race. What's the thought process there to put that time in? Because I'm sure you could be doing lots of other things. You could be just spending time with family. Like, what's the
Yeah, it's
motivation?
it's every weekend out doing something, but the motivation really is letting people know that the DFL has not abandoned Minnesota, greater Minnesota. We're still here. We can still be a presence. We're not as outspoken as we once were,
Hmm.
because it used to be Western Minnesota was blue all the way up and down the corridor, all along the Red River. It was just a haven for Democrats here, and it's kind of gone away. And so many people are afraid to put out a yard sign, are afraid to even stop and talk to you. And a lot of it is just showing that even if we're not winning, even if we're getting completely blown out of the water, which happens in these
Hmm.
rural areas, is that we still have a party here. I am still willing to be a voice for you, and I'm going to show up and let you know that I will fight for you if I can get elected in here. I want you guys to know that the party at large might be focusing on the cities, but the farmer and laborer part, we're here. We're in your communities. I'm here to help you in any way I can.
Do you encounter? I'm guessing you must encounter people who are in the agricultural economy, and they're not like big agribusiness landowners. They're hardworking, you know, trying to make ends meet. What's your pitch to them if they say, well, I'm for the Republican Party? And because it's one of those cases where if you look at the policy, you could argue like, hey, these are not things that are going to benefit the little farmer. They're kind of going to benefit the people with the money and the power. How do you try and flip someone who's kind of voting against their own economic interests sometimes?
Well, on a lot of it, since I mean, we do have a ton of family farms up here. We are not very
Mhm.
corporate farming here. We have
Mm.
what are called century farms. That farms have been around for at least 100 years in the same family.
Wow.
So they have their own signs out front. It's a pretty big deal up here, that prestige.
Yeah.
And for so many of them, a lot of us is saying, "Hey, you guys know my opponent, John. You know him personally. Did you see that he literally voted for you not to receive the farm subsidy this year? Did you see that your Senator Mark literally voted for all of this stuff to get pulled away from you guys, to make it harder for you to get crop insurance, to make it harder for you guys to turn any sort of profit?" And a lot of it's fallen on deaf ears, but that's really all you can do, is to tell them that, hey, they're actively trying to hurt you and shut down your farm. And here's the receipts, here's their voting record against farmers who they're trying to say they protect. But why are they doing everything they can to stop you? And when you bring that up to the representatives themselves, will be like, well, there's something in the bill that would have been bad because, someone down in the cities would have gotten an extra dollar on something or another. You'd be like,
Hmm.
so instead of helping a few people, everyone gets hurt now. How does that make sense? And just kind of let them process that. That seems to be the best way I have found, is let people come to their own conclusions with the
Mm.
information that you can give them.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a much more respectful and kind of human approach versus saying like, you're crazy, you're voting against your own interests.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
doesn't work up here because I mean, we know everyone up here. I mean, I have a
Hmm.
huge district, but I work with them in my professional life and healthcare. I have
Hmm.
people from 2 hours away that I see. So if I'm driving 2 hours up there, I still see them at the Sunnex gas station or something. So
Yeah.
when we're talking politics, it's like, well, you guys work with me already. I'm not going to be lying to you about this stuff.
Hmm.
Here's what it is. I hope you guys read this and just kind of come to your own conclusions. Are you actually getting help by these people, or are they working against you? And
Mm.
if you still think that they're helping you, that's fine. But here's the actual information. Go from there.
Yeah. Love it. Before we wrap up, we have one more chat that I wanted to get your reaction to. So I think Jeremy's referencing, he's a channel member. Thanks for your support, Jeremy. He was referencing uh, our argument that, hey, why are Republicans so angry about Harris getting the nomination, when we were like, look, the delegates decide, they've decided, like, what's the deal? And he's saying, hey, the way the Democratic Party handled the primary was, non-competitive. I was having lunch with actually a channel member, Soldier One, who was happened to be in the Bay Area, and so we grabbed a burrito, and he was like, "Yeah, um, the way that primary went down was really tough to see." My response to that is, I I am not in love with the way the DNC handled the primary process. Um, I am not. I was fighting against it, as a volunteer for the Phillips campaign in New Hampshire. But at the end of the day, on November 5th, we're going to choose between 4 more years of Donald Trump or not, or Harris Walls. And and I'm not going to say, well, I'm not going to vote for Harris because I'm mad at the Democratic Party, and somehow like help Trump get elected. That to me is like priority one. I'm curious, what are your thoughts, on the whole way that the primary went down, and how do you think that should factor into people's decisions in November?
Well, I mean, 2016, I was a big Bernie bro. So the DNC doing stuff that I do not think is cool
Yeah,
is not new to me.
yeah.
Um, I guess what it comes down to is I don't think anyone else would have put up the fight that Biden did. I think that when he was already getting through the primaries, he was ahead anyways. It's not the best thing to say. I'm just kind of going pragmatic to this, is that he was going to win unless he dropped out. That is kind of what happened anyways. I don't
Hmm.
like the way the DNC goes around many things, but I guess I'm not going to take it in too much to heart in this case, because no one trying to how to say this without offending a bunch of people. No one with a legitimate chance of beating him in a straight primary this ticket as an incumbent really could do anything about it. That's a terrible way to put that, I'm well aware, but it's how much are we going to go and fight through a primary when we already knew who was going to be on the other side and where we thought we were going to be with Biden running the election. If it was, Biden dropped out and we had a full primary, absolutely, we need to do this correct and get it going right away. But I don't think it's worth it to hold the grudge that long when we're this close to the general election.
Yeah, I'm with you that the probability of any challenger winning the nomination over an incumbent president that has decided to run for re-election is very low. That what I would say is that if I were in the DNC, I would say, look, we need to have a process that everyone feels like they got a fair shot because we are a diverse party.
Absolutely.
And I get it. It's resources and it might weaken our candidate. But we also want to make sure that come the general, everyone feels like they had their moment to try. And so let's do it because we'll live our principles around, competition. Like if we want the FTC to look at every company and say, is there enough competition here? We should be open to competition within the political system too. So, I hear you that both of us have had our criticisms of the DNC. I think sounds like we both think well, come November 5th, we still have to make a choice. And sitting this one out seems like not a good thing for the country.
Yeah, there's many things that need to change in the DNC at large. I just don't think it's right time right now to do it. I hope we can get better processes in place for next election and starting right now. I hate to dismiss it so much because it's not fair. It's absolutely not fair. But it is what it is right now, and we have to look forward for what's coming.
Yeah, so 4 years from now, when Harris, assuming she wins this November, and then let's assume she decides that she wants to run for re-election, do you think the Democratic Party will or should have a primary?
They absolutely should have a full primary and make it just like there's no incumbent. That's going to be very hard for them to do because she's going to hopefully be the incumbent. But I think to keep things fair, to keep things equitable, it should be starting fresh, starting as if there's no incumbent now and have a full primary process.
And should that process begin in South Carolina?
Anywhere that's not Iowa. That is all I can tell you. Is as a Minnesotan, we are above Iowa, and I'm so sick of them.
Yeah,
I think South Carolina is a much better state to start because they are more diverse. They have a better representation of the Democratic Party as a whole. There's less corn. I'll take anything to get out of Iowa.
I wish that they would pick each cycle's primary states by whatever are the closest swing states where there's real competition there will be competition in general, because South Carolina, it's not really reflective of the most kind of purple states, right? Pretty much
no. It's not like an Ohio or a Pennsylvania or anything.
Yeah, imagine if we had primaries in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, or Texas even, let's say that gets closer, then you're honing your message for the best. Then you don't really need to pivot as much for the general because this is going to be my message to win the whole thing. But yeah, I guess we'll let's cross that bridge when we get to it. James, one last question for you. How can people learn more about your campaign? If they wanted to, how can they help out and help you kind of make some history in Minnesota as well?
Well, I have a Facebook and I have a website. My website is sevilleforminnesota.com. That has links to my Facebook. I recently just joined Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. I'm still learning how to use that, but that's been fun. I also do most of my updates on Facebook because I'm still learning how to use my website properly. I've been kind of new to this. I'm an optician. I deal with glasses, not websites. So
Yeah.
give me some grace on that thing. But otherwise, if you'd like to donate too, there's a link on there that goes to my Act Blue. That picture right there, that is my daughter from 2 years ago. That is one of my favorite photos that I've ever done at a campaign event. She was just hauling some signs back to her truck.
That's great.
And there's some endorsements on there that got to get updated. We've been doing great on getting people to support the campaign, from companies to, or not companies, but organizations. We just recently got Education Minnesota, which is a huge one. That's all the Minnesota teachers unions and support staff unions. National Association of Social Workers just gave us an endorsement. We're out there. We're trying to put in the best effort we can.
I love it. Well, I totally respect what you're doing, and I thank you for your service to your community, and that ripples out into the rest of the country. It would have been easy for you to say, well, this is a 75-25 district. Why am I going to spend my time talking about these issues? So it's a selfless act you're doing, and I applaud you for it, my friend.
Well, thank you, Tom. I like to use the quote from Wellstone. It's also from Minnesota, but we all do better when we all do better. And the only way is to have people out there putting in some effort.
Love it. Well, thank you again for coming back on the show, James. It's always fun talking about what's going on, and
anytime.
Maybe we'll have to get you back after the first debate.
That'll be fun. That's coming up.
Are you want to make a quick prediction? Like, do you think how do you think it's going to go?
I think we're going to get the first meltdown from Trump live on camera. I think he's going to come very close to saying something he should not be saying, because it's been kind of building this whole time. I'm hoping, though, that everyone will just be nice and civil, and they'll mute mics and they'll do actual fact checking. That would be nice if they would actually do some fact checking and not just let people get away with things.
Yeah,
might be asking too much.
It's well, hopefully Kamala can do some fact checking of Trump, because that Biden wasn't really good at that.
No, he did not have any clap back to either ridiculous things that Trump was saying.
He was just trying to keep his head above water. He was struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm hoping we get a VP debate too, because Walz and Vance would be very interesting. See how that goes.
Oh, that, I'm going to make a prediction that might be the most interesting debate of the cycle, that VP debate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I think we kind of know what Trump is going to say, and we know Harris is basically going to cross-examine and prosecute him, which is great. But the Vance-Walz thing will be really, I think it'll be one to watch. So we'll see.
I'm hoping.
All right, James. Have a great one.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you again soon. Take care, buddy.
See you now.
Bye. All right. James Sceville. Go check out his site. And, I have a soft spot for underdogs. And, this is a guy who's he's not trying to, become some giant politician, as far as I can tell. I think he really cares about the issues, and he wants to serve his community. So that's a good thing in my book. So learn more about him here. Now, what I'm going to also do is go over some of the latest polls and betting odds before we wrap up. So the state of the race up to this second on Sunday, October 25th. Before I do that, I'm going to give a shout out to our channel members. So if you like this kind of content, you want to keep this this channel going, please consider clicking that join link. And I actually had lunch with our biggest supporter yesterday. If you are a channel member or you're ever in the San Francisco Bay Area, I live on the peninsula, so I don't live in San Francisco, about like 45 minutes south of it. But if you want to grab a burrito, some sushi, ramen, Thai, Vietnamese, let me know. Burger. We can talk politics. So, who are these channel members? If you're watching on YouTube, click that join link. The biggest supporter is Soldier One, who is a member of the Nerd Cabinet. Congressional nerd members are Kristen Slevin, Bike, Zig PC, and Emily Quinn. Kristen's been supporting this channel for 55 months. The Nerd City Council members, Gene, David, DK, Jekylego, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, Yang, Dean, Galessa, Jay Parent, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Jeremy, Mickey, Yoda, Jackson, and Unkiyu. And then we have our registered nerds, which starts at $1.99 a month. Our oldest registered nerd is Brandon David. And I'm just going to scroll through so you can see all of these amazing folks that, help cover the streaming software costs, the kind of hardware upgrades I've done recently. Hopefully this camera, I think the camera is pretty clear. You see the fishies. This mic. And there's a light there. And I'm trying to actually save up some money to do some advertising to kind of grow our audience so that I can land some national guests, which will be, we got a member in the audience. Hey, Emily. Lou's a member. Jerry's a member. Oh, Jeremy, you asked how did Cruz do? Let me just answer your question. Ted Cruz last re-election results. He beat Beto O'Rourke 51-48. So a 3-point gap. So if he only won by 3 points in 2018, you could argue like he's more vulnerable now, especially with the Harris-Walz kind of wave. So I would not mind seeing Ted Cruz out of the Senate. So let's look at the latest results. Okay. Oh, Emily, you're going to be in Seattle. Love it. Well, enjoy that beautiful Seattle weather before winter comes. Having lived in Seattle for 13 years, I really think there's nothing more beautiful than Seattle in the summer. Seattle in winter, little grayer. But that makes the summers even more special. Okay, let's look at the gamblers. What did the gamblers think? The gamblers actually think that this is closer than I'm saying. They're giving Harris a 50% chance and Trump a 48% chance. And if you look at the trend, basically there was a moment where even Trump, maybe last week, was slightly kind of ahead of Harris, and now it's come back. So here's the last week's trend. I mean, this thing's pretty close. Now, if you look at the month, there was a point where Trump had a 60% chance of winning back in July 25. So Trump has gone from 60% to a low point of 44, and now he's at 47.9% based on the gamblers' betting odds. Oh, then you're going to Boston. Love it. I actually had the privilege of spending many years in Boston. Well, okay, you're gonna go back to Boston in January. Yeah, well, it'll you get some nice charming snow, and that'll be great. Um, Boston in the fall. Oh, chef's kiss on that. Okay, so now let's look at election betting odds. Nope, we're gonna look at. We just did that. We're gonna look at polls. So we're gonna go focus on first on the national POTUS polls, and then we're gonna look at some battleground states. So nationally, you have now some people, some of my MAGA friends are like, "Oh, why are you looking at ABC News?" Oh, Emily, are you a Harvard alum? Fancy. Love it. Yeah, yeah. It is a beautiful campus, especially the business school. So what we see here is that Trump is behind Harris in a composite of polls. So for the MAGA folks, this is not ABC News running the poll and you're like, oh, it's a woke poll. This is a composite of multiple polls so that it tries to avoid relying and cherry picking one poll. And when you look at all of the major polls, including Republican leaning polls, polling organizations, you basically still incorporate that. You still have Trump behind. Now, one thing that we don't know is the RFK effect. So let's say RFK is responsible for 3 points. Then you're at 47-46. If he's at 4 points, you've got a tie. So anybody who is anti-Trump, as much as you and I are excited that we don't have to rely on Biden, know that, Trump naturally has a 42-44% rock solid. They're going to vote for him even if he gets caught paying off a porn star or gets convicted of felonies or tries to overturn the Constitution. Like they're gonna be with him. These are the ultra MAGA, right? So he's already starting with that floor of 42-44. And then he's got, a couple percentage points of independence. And then you've got the RFK endorsement. Like, bro could do it. Maybe that's why the gamblers are only giving Harris a 50% chance. Now, if you look at the battleground states, let's look at the blue wall. So you got Pennsylvania. It's pretty close, 46-45 or 47-45. Let's look at Michigan. Woo! 47-44. Okay, we're a little better in Michigan. But, a 3-point margin isn't like something to necessarily take to the bank, especially in August. Let's look at Wisconsin. 48-44. Okay, we're doing a little better in Wisconsin. Some people have been saying that Florida is the competitive state. I mean, I can't imagine Florida, but I don't know, 48-44. I don't know if that's I think that's pretty safe Trump territory. North Carolina. Woo! Woo! 46-46. Damn. And where are the other 8? They're not all with Kennedy either. They must be undecided. Wow. Georgia. Damn. Him. 46-46 in Georgia. Yikes. I may have to go and volunteer in Georgia. Did we look at Arizona? 46-40. I mean, so number one, for those of us who are like, thank God we don't have to bet on Biden. Yes, we were all freed from Biden prison. On the other hand, for those of you who are like, wow, Kamala and Beyonce are going to take it all down, it's like, well, those battleground states are still pretty close. Now, I will say this, we were losing to Trump in pretty much all of those battleground states with Biden. So we've gone from losing in all of them to now tying or winning in most of them. But we're winning by that much. So this is going to be a battle to the finish, to the last blade of grass. So good luck to everybody. Hopefully this was useful. If you can't become a member and you're like, hey, Todd, love the channel, can't become a member, the next best thing you can do is like, subscribe, share, and comment. Why don't you just do 2 of those? You can either like and subscribe, you can like and comment, or you can share and like. Any of those combos would be great. And we have a quick question in the chat. Do you think RFK drop out? Yeah, unfortunately, I do. I think there's going to be I think it's probably going to be better for Trump than it is for Harris. I think all of the RFK supporters who were winnable by Harris already moved to Harris even before RFK dropped out. So the only people left, and RFK was polling like in the 5% range. Like if they're still with RFK after Biden got swapped out, you got to believe that they're not down with Harris. So they're likely will gravitate towards Trump. And if there's enough RFK people in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, that's a big win for Trump. So let's acknowledge that Trump had a very big win this week by getting RFK to endorse him. Now, I personally find a lot of cognitive dissonance between RFK talking about chronic disease and the need for better, healthy American living and Donald Trump's platform. I'm not sure why RFK endorsed Trump. I'm guessing maybe it was the Ukraine thing was the main reason. Maybe he got promised something. I don't know. I'm sure Harris wouldn't give him anything. So there you go. That's my take. All right. I'm going to go. I'm starting to lose my voice, but I love the fact that there's such a good. Emily's saying, yeah, I could see that. Trump went up 1.2%. Yeah. It's good for Trump. Will it be good enough to swing the election? I don't know. But if you are a anti-Trumper or Harris supporter, please donate a few bucks to her. Like, actually, if you have fixed budget and you could donate to Nerds for Humanity as a channel member or the Harris campaign, I'm going to say go send it over to the Harris campaign. If you can do both, that's best. And don't forget to volunteer and talk to all your friends. And also, what I've been doing lately is trying to help my MAGA friends understand that she is driving a lot of excitement and doing really well in these polls. Because I'm a little worried my MAGA friends are going to be convinced that if Trump loses, that it was a stolen election and nobody liked Harris and how could she win, blah, blah, blah. So we kind of not only need to win the election, we need to win the transfer of power. And Emily saying, I donate to, yeah, I feel you. They have raised like 500 million. I think we raised a little less than that for this channel, but that's okay. And know that any money you give to this channel, like I don't do anything, spend any of it for personal use. It's all for growing the content and for promoting the channel and keeping the content flowing. All right, guys, I will, I forgot the going away music. So let's give a final 3 things for you. 1 is it's looking like a super close race, razor's edge. We are way better off without Biden, but we do not have this in the bag. Number 2, kudos to James Sceville for running for office in Minnesota in a rural red district and trying to make the case. That's real kind of public service and selfless. So happy to see that happen. And volunteer or donate to James. Actually, like, you probably might help more in the long run by doing that. And then the third thing is predictions about the future. I think there are three things that could affect us. One is some border issue that is bigger than what it is today. So luckily, the Biden administration is using a lot of executive actions to kind of tamp down the border encounters per month. I think he should have done that earlier, but better late than never. So, but if there's like a big surge and a huge caravan or whatever, like, that's going to be really good for Trump. Second is stock market and the economy. Now, it looks like the Fed's finally going to lower rates and inflation is under control. That could be really good for Harris, but that'll be something to keep an eye on. If inflation spikes up, unemployment spikes, stock market crashes, that'll be good for Trump. And then the third is some October surprise, some scandal that we don't know about. Like, the equivalent of Hillary's emails or Hunter Biden's laptop, what the equivalent of that for Harris. I'm sure the MAGA folks are looking all over for, the first gentleman's laptop or something about Harris. So we'll see. They're trying that with Walz, saying that he hasn't served his country. I don't know. I kind of feel like I wouldn't call Trump the most selfless guy. He had an opportunity to serve. He wasn't able to because of his bone spurs, but it doesn't seem like that has affected his golf game. Any rate, we won't dwell on that. That's kind of negative. So, but those are the things to look out for. Hope this was useful. And by the way, I have a Substack, which is kind of like an email newsletter. It's free. And I summarize a lot of these long form interviews there. So let me give you a quick look. You should totally subscribe there. That's free. And so, like, here I break down Project 2025, some of the key things that came up, where they're different, blah, blah, blah. So that's one example. Oh, yeah, I give shout outs to our channel members there too. Here's a summary of the conversation I had with my MAGA brother, where we agreed, where we disagreed, quotes from the interview, that kind of thing. So do that. And then thanks to all the people who've been playtesting the Nerds for Democracy board game. That's coming along really well. It's actually a really fun game. It's got a little bit of Monopoly, a little bit of poker, a little bit of improv, where you're running for office. So if you're interested in being a playtester, I'm happy to send you a free test kit, and you can get a mention in the credits when we go to production. Just email me, tom@nerdsforhumanity.com, and we'll send one out to you. All right, bye, nerds.